Welcome friends. Today we are going to start unit 3 in business communication. In this particular unit, we'll be talking about commercial correspondence, right? Correspondence word basically is used to denote letters. However, it can be used to denote other types of correspondences also, for example, a memorandum or a notice, right? Let us first understand what commercial correspondence is in the first place. See, commercial, you understand. What are the other synonyms of commercial? One synonym is business. So anything you do, any correspondence in the course of business is called a commercial correspondence. You may also call it business correspondence. Do you understand? So while running your business, you may have to correspond with a number of stakeholders. Now, what do we mean by stakeholders? Stakeholders are those entities which have an interest in your business. They are impacted by your business, so they are all stakeholders, right? So whenever you are corresponding with these stakeholders, then it would be called commercial correspondence. Fine. Now, who are the stakeholders in a business? You might have read about the various stakeholders. Please don't confuse it with shareholders. Shareholders are those who own the company, who own a particular business. So they are called shareholders, who have a share in the business. But stakeholders is a relatively bigger term, a more comprehensive term, which does not only include the shareholders, but it also includes other entities. For example, if you are corresponding with the government, because government is also impacted by your business. So if you are corresponding with them, this would also be called commercial correspondence. Why? Because government is also a stakeholder in your business. Now you would say how a particular government would be impacted by how I am carrying out my business. So think of a business which runs a manufacturing unit and they are also polluting the environment. Don't you think there would be some impact on the government since there is a pollution? Since the business unit, the manufacturing unit is causing pollution and the environment is getting polluted, it may so happen that the people may start opposing that particular business unit and they may want the government to order closure of that particular business unit. So yes, you may also have, as a business, you may also have an impact on the government. You might be reading about all these things in business environment. So this is an example of stakeholder. The government is an example of stakeholder. Your customer is an example of stakeholder. Because how you carry out your business is going to impact your customer. For example, if your product is of defective quality and while using the product, the customer may get injured. Don't you think your business is impacting the customer also? So all these entities who are getting impacted by your business, who have an interest in how you run your business, they are called stakeholders. And whenever you are communicating with them, then this would be an example of commercial correspondence. Why? Because you are corresponding for the purpose of your business, right? Now let's have a look at some of the common types of commercial correspondences. If you're writing a letter to your supplier, now who is a supplier? Supplier is somebody who is supplying you a raw material, right? So for example, if you own a shop and you prepare sweets, then the person who is selling you milk could be your supplier. So somebody who is selling you raw materials which you process and then maybe produce some other products or maybe sell it after processing to some other business or to some customers. So this is what a supplier is. He will be providing you some raw materials, right? So if you are writing a letter to his supplier, you are writing a letter to your customers, or maybe you might be writing a letter to your creditors. You might be writing a letter to your bank. You go to bank to apply for loan so that you can have that loan and you can use that particular loan to run your business. So that again, the bank again becomes a stakeholder in your business. If you do well, you are able to return the loan and the bank will remain in business. But if you somehow are not able to run your business successfully, you would not be able to return the loan, and it may cause loss to the bank. So the banks are also stakeholders, and if you are communicating with them, if you are corresponding with them, then again you are basically indulging in commercial correspondence, right? Again, to insurance agencies, generally all good enterprises will insure themselves against losses, against natural calamities like fire or flood, right? So you have to at times correspond with these insurance agencies also, and this again would be an example of commercial correspondence. Then if you're writing a letter to the government, as I've already talked about, or some regulatory agencies. Now what do we mean by regulatory agency? For example, if you are a bank, there is a sectoral regulator in banking, and that particular sectoral regulator who regulates all the banks operating in the country is known as RBI, Reserve Bank of India. So that is the sectoral regulator for banking industry, right? If, for example, you are running telecom services business, for example, companies like Airtel or Vodafone Idea, the regulator is TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. So different sectors of economy, there are different regulators. They ensure that there is a level playing field for all the companies to compete, and the companies don't fool the customers. So if you are writing a letter to these regulatory agencies, then again this is an example of commercial correspondence. Again, letter to share owners, this again an example of commercial correspondence. Who are the share owners? Who own part of the business, who have a share of the business, they are called share owners. Now please don't confuse share owners with stakeholders. Many times instead of share owners we use the word shareholders. Shareholder is who own the business, but stakeholders could include shareholders, but they could also include other entities like suppliers, customers who don't own the business, but they have an interest in how the business is run, right? So this is a difference between share owner and the stakeholder, or shareholder and a stakeholder. So don't get confused between the two, right? So whenever you are writing to these kind of entities, or whenever these entities are writing to you, corresponding with you, that would be an example of commercial correspondence, right? Now let us understand how to ensure that your commercial correspondence is effective. So you have to take care of 4 C's. In some books you might also find 7 C's. So if you are interested in knowing more about effectiveness of commercial correspondence, you can refer to those books also. But these 4 C's are very, very important, and these are correctness, conciseness, clarity, and courtesy. What do we mean by correctness? There should not be any inaccuracy. The facts should be stated truthfully, right? So this is what we mean by correctness. Information that you have given in a particular letter, information that is part of your correspondence, should be correct. It should not be inaccurate. It should not be some false propaganda, right? Conciseness, it should be as brief as possible, right? I hope you remember the KISS principle. Keep it short and simple. So you have to keep it short. Conciseness basically means keep it short. Clarity, you should be able to communicate clearly. There should not be any miscommunication between the sender of the correspondence and the receiver of the correspondence. So you have to ensure whatever you are writing in a particular letter, whatever you are including in your commercial correspondence, that thing should be absolutely clear to the other party for whom the correspondence is meant. Then courtesy. Courtesy means being polite. I hope you remember the example that I had talked about in the class also, in the first semester also, while talking about letters. So for example, when you write an application for leave, you don't say, sir, kindly grant me leave. Would you be, sir, kind enough to grant me leave? This is what we mean by courtesy. Dear sir, you cannot straight away start with the name Mr. So and so. You will have to say dear sir, right? So this is what we mean by courtesy, and these 4 C's are important for you to be able to correspond effectively. So remember these 4 C's. What we'll be doing is we'll be in the coming sessions, we'll be discussing these C's one by one, and we'll be taking them up in more detail so that you can have a better idea of how to make your correspondence more effective. Thank you very much.